again. Welcome to our third Vanguard battle report. Just before we start, just to make the note that we made a couple of mistakes last time round, in particular about the ability of the retinue healer. In fact, on rereading the book, it becomes clear that the healer must take part in the battle and survive in order to be able to change the result of the injury roll at the end. And we got that wrong. We'll try and get that right this time. And the other thing we wanted to do this time was to test a warhound in the Abyssal's army, but they don't actually have one at the moment in the company. And so retrospectively, we allowed them to buy one using their campaign gold to bring him into their retinue for 15 points. So let's move on, look at the scenario for this third battle. And what's happened here is that, as you know, in the first battle the two warbands fought at sheep slaughter looking for supplies to see them through the Heartbreak Mountains. They travelled the Heartbreak Mountains, got to the Silver Oasis where they were to meet a messenger who was carrying the maps, and they managed to get the maps. And in both of those battles the Abyssals beat the Ogres quite convincingly. We've now actually moved on and they've now reached the fabled city of Optria, which you can see on the right there. And in this scenario, it's a modified supply grab scenario where there are 3 piles of treasure to be grabbed. And there they are, showing the red arrows there. Now we're playing with elevated terrain here, and what we're saying is that 1-storey buildings are height 4, 2-storey buildings are height C. Beasts and cavalry may not climb ladders, and although some of the buildings are actually in deployment zones, models may not start inside buildings. And we decided that ladders would constitute difficult terrain, and we came up with house rules covering how we would handle combat if a model wanted to charge up a ladder to assault a model that's at a higher level. But in fact in the battle that never happened, so we don't need to concern ourselves with that. Looking at the Ogre Warband, we brought in 2 new models for this one. We swapped out the Warlocks. There were 2 Warlocks in the company and we swapped in the other one, and this is the one who actually is the retinue healer. So that if he survives he can heal people at the end of the battle. And we also brought in the Boomer to try out his special rules during the battle. So there's the entire Ogre battle company, which has the captain, and you may remember he lost an eye last time round. We have got the Warlock, that's the new one. We have got the Hunter, we've got an Ogre Warrior, we have got the Boomer, and we have got 3 red goblin rabble, each with goblin spears. And moving on, there's the Abyssal Warband, which has got 2 flame bearers. Both have been upgraded and they're now range stat 4+. 3 Abyssal Guards, 2 of which have been upgraded to have 3 wounds. They've got the Hellquin Blood Mask as their leader. They've got the Imps, who've been upgraded to have 4 wounds. They've got the Despoiler again in there, and we're trying a Gargoyle out for the first time to see how that goes. And we also got the Hellhound, who we've given a heavy weapon and a lucky charm to. Now it seems rather strange you'd be able to give a beast a heavy weapon. We couldn't find anything rules saying you can't, and I suppose that's the equivalent of having sharpened his teeth to make them more effective. So that's the Abyssal Warband. Moving on to deployment, there's the Ogre deployment. Now initially the Boomer had thought to deploy at the bottom where the Hunter is and move straight up onto that elevated platform up the steps. But in hindsight he thought with his range of 9 inches that probably wasn't going to be that helpful. So in fact he deployed at the top where he can move up the steps onto the elevated platform at the top there, and then move along and get a better field of fire. And the basic plan is by splitting the force, both sides of that building in the middle, they can then either go for the pile of treasure in the middle or at the bottom, while the 2 models at the top and the goblin up there can go for the top objective. And there's the Abyssal's deployment, same thing, the 2 flame bearers there at the foot of the ladder aiming to go up, and then they'll have the elevated position for their shooting. And again, splitting most of the force going to the north of the building, where it can go either the top objective or the centre objective, but with a Hellhound and one of the Abyssal Guards coming around the bottom to look at the southern objective. So turn 1, the Ogres have the initiative. They've rolled 7 power dice and the Abyssals have 5. First thing was the Ogre Boomer moved onto the high ground to aid his shooting, and he was supported there by the Warrior and a Goblin, and they secured the treasure, at least for now. Elsewhere there was a cautious approach, keeping out of the charge range of the Abyssals. On the Abyssal side, the 2 Flame Bearers did move up onto the top of the building for the benefit it afforded, and was a cautious advance elsewhere, keeping out of the charge range of the Ogres, and also ensuring units were 2 inches apart to keep out from the Boomer's ranged weapon, which has an area effect. There's no combat or shooting this turn. There's an overview of the battlefield at the end of turn 1. And going into turn 2, Ogres again have the initiative, and 5 power dice each for the Ogres and the Abyssals. That's generally cautious advance, both sides. Abyssals move both fire up onto the both Flame Bearers up onto forward onto the high ground, where they're in range now from their vantage point. And remember, they can shoot up to 12 inches with their enhanced ability. And the Ogres move forward, keeping Goblins in front of their high value units, so the high value units cannot actually be charged at the moment. So there's the Ogre Captain behind his, and at the southern end there's the Hunter behind his. But in the south, an Abyssal Guard actually charged the Goblin shielding the Hunter. Did 1 hit. The Goblin actually used an extra power dice to try for his armour save, but failed and was killed. So first blood there to the Abyssals. The Abyssal Guard then followed up to clear the way, which would allow the Hellhound later to move forward and charge into the Hunter. Elsewhere, the Ogre Warlock moved forward to try and flame the Abyssal Guard. Caused 2 hits, but both were saved by the Abyssal Guard's armour. The Hellhound then charged into the Hunter. Way having been cleared, as you can see, the Abyssal Guard move forward out of the way. Managed 3 hits and did 1 wound onto the Hellhound. The north end, the Ogre Boomer moved forward into a better position. And the Abyssals force fatigue a Flame Bearer, paid 1 power dice for his leaping firebolt, and shot at the Goblin in front of the Captain. We assumed he had cover. 2 shots plus 1 power dice. He got 3 shots, which modified for the height as well, became 4 hits. All armour saves by the Goblin were failed, and so not surprisingly he died. And that now also then frees up a charge lane onto the Ogre Captain, who is then multi-charged by the Gargoyle and by the Abyssal Leader, the Mask. Elsewhere, the Abyssals force fatigued the Hellhound to enable him to carry out a round of melee against the Hunter. Did 2 hits, which became 2 wounds. None were saved. And again, the Abyssal dice throwing, a bit like the last game, out of the box. Remainder of the Abyssals move forward. Sorry, I made an error there. What I should have said is the Captain moved backwards to keep out of the charge range of the Gargoyle and the Mask. There's a dead pile at the end of the turn. And in the end phase, the ogres cleared fatigue on the captain, but had to leave it on the hunter, and the abyssals cleared all fatigue. And so moving into turn 3, and again the ogres have the initiative. They have rolled 5 power dice, the abyssals rolled 6. Now, because at the start of the game we recognised that the ogres were fighting a warband with higher experience, the difference in level was 3. You divide the 3 by 2, rounding down becomes 1, and that meant the ogres got 1 extra underdog power dice, and they elected to use it this turn, thinking that turn 3 was likely to be the critical turn, and so that gave them the extra power dice, so they've got 6 each. The ogres had 2 priorities. They wanted to shoot at the imps with the boomer, but they also wanted to attack the hellhound with the hunter to try and kill the hellhound before the hellhound could kill the hunter. And they decided to attack the hellhound first. So the hunter cleared fatigue and then conducted melee with 1 power dice, 3 hits. The hellhound used an extra power dice to try to save a wound. But didn't actually, had 3 wounds passed on it. Had to take a nerve check at -2, used an additional power dice for that, and actually passed his nerve check on an 8. Again, abyssals rolling out of a box of their dice trays, they just won't die. He was, however, knocked down, and the hunter, having only used a short movement, was able to move backwards, so is no longer in melee with that model. The ogres immediately paid 1 power dice for another activation, and the boomer shot at the imps. He had cover from the balustrade on the slope going down there, and so it would cover, but nevertheless he got 3 hits, all of which failed the save, and so the imps were killed. The area effect also caught the Abyssal Guard. Unfortunately, the despoiler was out of range, but it caught the Abyssal Guard, which took 1 hit, which became 1 wound. And the boomer then, with his second move, then moved back out of charge range of the Abyssal Guard. There's the 1 wound on that Abyssal Guard, and the hunter having and the boomer having moved. The southern end, the Abyssal Guard charged the hunter with 3 attacks, actually got 4 hits, 2 of which were saved, but that meant that the hunter had to take a nerve check at -1. He used an additional power dice but failed, and so the hunter is killed. Quite extraordinary turn of events where the hellhound survives and the hunter is killed. The ogres conducted a group charge with the warrior and the goblin into the Abyssal Guard. The goblin stopped short but provided support with his spear. 5 hits on the Abyssal Guard, all wound, nerve check at -4, and not surprisingly he was killed. The Abyssals now are in a position to do their group assault with the mask and the gargoyle into the ogre captain. This became really quite complicated. The mask managed 2 wounds on the captain, who retaliated, got 3 hits, all of which were saved. Again, the luck of the Abyssals. The gargoyle attacked, made 3 hits, but all of those were saved. The captain then retaliated against the gargoyle, did 3 hits, all of which were wounded. Need to do a nerve check at -1. The gargoyle passed but was knocked down and fatigued. The ogre warlock now then cast Battle Fury on the captain, which allowed him to attack again. He decided to attack the downed gargoyle. 5 hits, became 5 wounds, nerve check at -4, dead gargoyle. So at least we've killed something at last. The Flame Bearer then shoots into the ogre warrior. 2 hits, 2 wounds. Again, luck of the Abyssals. Ogres forced Fatigue the Boomer to move into a better position. And the Abyssals then moved their second Flame Bearer and another shoot at the Warrior. One hit, but this one fortunately was saved. The Ogres had no more activations at this stage, having lost some models. However, the Abyssal still had several to go. And the Despoiler charged into the Ogre Warrior, who'd already taken 2 wounds. Did 3 hits, crushing 3, all became wounds. Nerve check at -2 for Warrior, killed him. So a dead Warrior. At the bottom end, the Warhound stands up, and the Abyssal Guard moved closer to the combat. And we went to the end phase where the Ogres cleared fatigue on the Captain, and the Abyssals cleared fatigue on the Hellhound. And that's and it's the dead pile at the end of that turn. Now it doesn't look too bad, 4 Ogres and 3 Abyssals, but a lot of the Ogres are wounded at this stage. Moving on to turn 4, Ogre Initiative again. Power dice, 5 for the Ogres, 6 for the Abyssals. And then meleeed against the Captain. 3 hits became 3 wounds. And the Captain was saved now. He's now up to 5 wounds, but had a wound upgrade after the first game, and so he now has 6 wounds, so no requirement to do a nerve check. Captain retaliates, does 3 hits, which was another 2 wounds on the mask, but a nerve check with 1 power dice, and the mask passed yet again. The Boomer at the top there shot into the Despoiler. 3 hits, 2 which are saved, caused 1 wound, and then the Boomer then walked out of the charge range of the Despoiler. And on the left there you can see the Abyssal Guard charge the Ogre Captain, caused 1 hit, which was saved. But the Ogre Captain is now on 5 wounds. The Boomer's in a bit of a disparate situation. There's not much they can do. And so at the end of that phase, as it's the Ogre's activation, they decide they are going to call it a day, and they opt to withdraw from the battlefield. So we went into the post-engagement phase. Return equipment and looked at casualties. So there's the casualties. On the Ogre side, 2 Rabble, a Hunter and a Warrior, and on the Abyssals, the Imps, the Gargoyle and the Abyssal Guard. Looking at the Ogres first of all, the Rabble, being grunts, are dead. The Ogre Warrior initially rolled a 16, which would have been dead, but because the healer survived the battle we could re-roll that. He rolled a 73, which is a full recovery. The Hunter rolled a 51, which is broken bones, which is -1 to his wounds, and that became a permanent injury. So that will affect him in future games. On the Abyssal side, the Imps are dead. The Gargoyle has a mangled leg, which is -1 to his speed. A bit surprising when he's using his wings rather than his leg, perhaps that's affected his wings as well. And the Abyssal Guard survived against the odds, which means he makes a full recovery, but also gains 2 experience point for doing that. Again, luck of the dice for the Abyssals there. We did retinue assessment. The Abyssal decided to change the rule of a healer to the Abyssal Guard, the one that just survived that battle there. Now, that role had been filled by a lower Abyssal. He was demoted, and because of that, the lower Abyssal and the leader both lose 1 experience point for demotion. And it costs 1 campaign gold for demotion and another 3 to promote the Abyssal Guard into that role. And the Ogres promoted the Warrior to a Quartermaster for 3 campaign gold. Resulting experience, the Ogres, because they were fighting against a warband with higher experience, actually got quite a lot this time. So 5 Ogres survive the game, get 1 experience, and then get a second one each for playing against a higher experienced warband. And 3 of the Ogres killed an enemy, gain an extra experience point. And because the leader survived, he gave a battlefield commendation to the Warlock. and that meant that at this stage 3 models could be upgraded to rank 1. The Boomer was upgraded to rank 1 and gains +1 range stat. The Warrior increased his melee to 3+, and the Warlock upgraded to rank 1 and increased his range stat to 4+. The Abyssals, 7 Abyssals survived the game and gained 1 experience point. 3 models killed an enemy, and the reason only 3 of them did is some models killed more than 1, so they get an extra experience point. And the battlefield commander survived, so he gave a commendation to the Despoiler, and that meant the Despoiler could be upgraded to rank 1 and increased its melee to 3+, and the commander of the Mask himself upgraded to rank 1 and gave himself 1 extra wound. Campaign gold side, the Ogres lost, and therefore only get 10 campaign gold, and the Abyssals won and get 16 campaign gold. To forage and explore, and the Ogres with a Pathfinder rolled a 3, which with a Pathfinder they were able to re-roll to a 5 to give them 5 campaign gold. And in step 2 they rolled a 55, which is a tavern, in this case for Horned Moon Coaching Inn, and for a cost of 2 campaign gold to buy a round of drinks for his company, he could improve the nerve of all models in the warband in the next game by +1, so that's a worthwhile find. The Abyssals rolled a 2, which got 2 campaign gold, and then an 8 for 28, which gave them a Sacred Grove, which gave them 2 healing brews. That's the wording in the book. We presume that means healing potion. Looking to recruitment and resupply, there was none on either side, and we then confirmed the roster updates. And so that concludes the battle. What did we find from that? I think the first thing is the Ogres are very, very expensive, and they really need upgrades to make themselves work. The range 9 for the Boomer is really not great because it's going to be in somebody's charge range. The only tactic really is to shoot and then use your walk to move away out of someone's charge range. But I need a bit more practice with that. I did think the Flame Bearers were really quite effective with their Leaping Firebolt, which you can boost to a 12-inch range, and they were really quite effective. I think as well some rules need to really house rule some of the rules for the use of terrain. It does make for an interesting game, but there is a bit more work I think you need to do in advance if you are going to have multiple levels in the game. So, 3rd game in a row, the Ogres have lost to the Abyssals. We'll see if there's going to be another game in this campaign. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed it. If you have spotted any errors we've made, please do let us know.